So our story continues with the two gods of destruction who are left remaining in the multiverse, Iwan, god of destruction for Universe 1, and Mule, god of destruction for Universe 3, with both remaining in an eerie silence as they stare at the god killer who had slain so many of their fellow divine brethren. But still standing there, drooling, unresponsive, and in a vegetative state after being trapped in an infinite nightmare is Vegito. Oh, you are so much more of a delight to look at when you can't talk, aren't you, my dear Vegito? As Madara also watches on with a sense of pleasure in his voice after leaving the so-called god killer more vulnerable and defenseless than a mere toddler. But as Vegito remains stood still, soon robotic sounds can be heard from the middle of Mule's robotic core, until from within, a hushed voice is heard saying, "Enough of this. It's time I dealt with this dirt myself." And out of the metallic exoskeleton, finally, the miniature Mule appears, draped in his God of Destruction garb. But as we zoom in on his face, his true expression and feelings are revealed, as with an angered, betrothed look, he lets out, "Pathetic. The blood of gods and angels are still all over your clothes. The stench of your actions has not left you even to this day, and the debt of your sins will never be repaid, God Killer. But you can bet I'll collect as much of it as I can. You sorry piece of trash!" As Mule then finally begins stepping out, staring Vegito down and yelling profanities, before, with gritted teeth, he would then begin thinking back and letting out, "You know, even years ago at the Tournament of Power, when I first met you as your separate selves, I always knew you were not to be trusted. Mere mortals, calling themselves Super Saiyan gods? Don't make me laugh, you disgusting subspecies. Accessing some sort of counterfeit divine energy and suddenly placing you in the same realm as us deities? And what's worse, all this while that silly cat Beerus would just gawk and scream like a cheerleader. And now look where that got him. Gone like the rest of them. Gone like my fellow gods!" Instantly, in a wrath of fury, then slamming his fist across the face of the defenseless Vegito, sending his head snapping back without a sound from the god killer to even respond. Sending Vegito's near-lifeless body to slam back onto the ground, far off and back first, as his blade of destruction is let go and falls to the ground, stabbing into it. And still, even with blood now seeping from his chin where Mule struck, he just remains lost, deep within the nightmare. "You damn fool! I'll make you pay for every god you've slain!" As not satisfied with striking the mentally disabled Vegito, Mule rushes in to continue the violence. "Wipe that stupid look off your face, demon!" As brutally, Mule then lands with a thunderous stomp right on Vegito's face, compressing it momentarily inwards as if stepping on a balloon. And viciously, in a rampage of unprovoked assault, Mule then begins stamping non-stop on the face of the motionless Vegito. But as his face begins to get barraged by the foot of the god, nothing changes on the expression of the god killer, except for the flurry of blood that gushes out of his face that has also become bruised all over. He won! But after finally growing fatigued from his onslaught on Vegito's face, the god of destruction quickly turns around to his fellow member and yells, "Listen, I know you don't talk much, but don't you want a piece of this too? All of the destroyers he killed, the stress he caused us, the pain. This is our revenge, my friend. Seize it with both hands!" But in response, Iwan just remains calm and silent and respectful, levitating off the ground with his hands behind his back before he finally lets out, "Though what you say has some truth, Mule. You may be right. As much as I would enjoy giving that monster over there a true beating, I say we handicap him further first, just in case he wakes up. Allow me to Hagai his arms and legs while he's still like this." The response leading to Mule instantly laughing maniacally as he continues with his foot just above Vegito's face. "What a fine idea, Iwan! To think, you barely speak, but when you do, it is to say the most sadistic ideas. I'll take you up on that offer, but let us do it together. And then, even if he does wake up from this thing, I'd love to see him just try and fight us with just his head." Hold it right there, children. But just as Mule and Iwan become increasingly excited at the idea of dismembering the downed Vegito, a familiar but authoritative voice calls from the shadows. And it is revealed to be, of course, Madara, second of the 5 strongest and defeater of Ultra Vegito. With his hand eccentrically placed on his mask, he would then let out, "Don't even bother with that stupid idea. This one is no ordinary Saiyan from what I've gathered. His body has regeneration abilities somehow. Something to do with a power he refers to as Boo? Who knows whatever that is. But the only way to hurt this one is to erase him completely. However, like I said, the priest himself said he wants him back alive. And if you want to disobey him and deal with the aftermath, then so be it. But I will not be around to protect you fools." Damn it! Causing the smaller God of Destruction mule to immediately cuss out in frustration, as he begrudgingly grumbles, "You've got to be kidding me! Just what kind of ungodly changes has this freak undergone, huh? Where would he even get access to such things? All from within Universe 7? Huh. But I guess the real question here is, what does the Daishinken want with him? Could it be the time rings? Or maybe Whis' staff? Either way, how annoying we can't enjoy our revenge fully, God Killer. Iwan, you better get a whack in now while you still can." And immediately, as if never having to be told twice, Iwan appears with his foot raised and ready to stamp on Vegito 2, yelling back, "So be it then. I'll enjoy this as much as I can." As instantly as the gods begin simultaneously attacking, Madara just watches on bemused, commenting, "What petty, weak beings." And all the while, yet again, Vegito would just remain unmoving and unable to do a thing as more and more blood and bruises plague him under the brutal beating. But in a curious sight, as we zoom in on his left eye, a sudden stream of tears begins to fall. Could it be in reaction to the physical pain, or perhaps a more emotional and mental one from what is happening within his mind? Let me go! But as we finally peek back into the infinite nightmare that Godkiller is trapped in, like a martyr, we see Vegito pinned by chains to a standing tall, T-shaped structure. And below seem to be the once thought erased Gohan, Goten, Trunks, Chi-Chi and Bulma, his family members and the closest people within his life. Hakai! But from a distance, the sinister words of the destroyers unfortunately is heard, and of course, first Trunks begins to erase again. Dad! Before so too is the young Goten. Dad! But still standing now with an angry and panicked voice, Gohan, the oldest son of Vegito, watching on, would scold, "What are you doing? Aren't you going to do anything to stop them, Dad? Do something! Save us! Hakai!" But before any more can be said, the same fate is awaited for the young Saiyan once again. For the third time, now being erased right before the eyes of Vegito. No! Stop it! And when we do see the effects of such trauma on the Godkiller, its impact is clear. As with rivers of warm tears flooding down his cheeks and drool shooting out of his mouth as he yells, the Godkiller is seen at his lowest and as a shell of his former self, after an unknown quantity of pure, traumatic torture. Goku! Vegeta! But things do not end there, as suddenly, from the particles left behind of his sons, his 2 wives, Chi-Chi and Bulma, then run in disarray towards their husband. Save us! And instantly, as if holding onto for dear life, literally, the 2 grab onto the feet of their spouse, not knowing there was nothing Vegito could even do to hug them back. But regardless, with tears flooding down her own eyes, Chi-Chi with a look of sadness and fear would say, "Goku, don't let me die, please!" While Bulma, equally sad and tearing up, would add, "Vegeta, don't you love me?" Hakai! But just as tragically as before, both women are instantly then disposed of by the seemingly hidden god surrounding them, and in the most permanent of ways. Chi-Chi! Bulma! Leaving the severely heartbroken Saiyan to just scream out their names one more time, unable to distinguish now reality from illusion anymore. I will kill you! Leaving the Godkiller to do the only thing he can as he explodes in power, yelling as hard as he can as if anybody would be able to hear. As electricity then begins to surround his entire body, yet none of this is even the slightest effect of freeing from his T-shaped cage. Pathetic. But as Vegito screams and roars, finally, the 12 gods of destruction appear before him, all smiling and snickering, just watching on as if the Godkiller was a mere exhibit at the zoo. But suddenly, from all the laughter, a cry is heard, the cry of a baby Pan. as the merciless apparition of Belmont lifts the child by the hair and says, "Seems I have something of yours, Vegito. How do I turn this thing off, eh?" "Man! You let go of her now!" Immediately causing the grandfather, of course, to become furious in an unsurmountable stage of rage as he speaks through gritted teeth. But back in reality, while all this mental trauma goes on, an equal amount of physical damage is laid out too, as the two destroyers Mule and Iwan continue to stamp on Vegito's face until barely a breath can be heard. But back in the dream, Belmont's eye begins to move slowly towards the still crying Pan until... Hakai! With one more final word said, the unthinkable is done to the defenseless child. As in a total throwback to what originally happened on Earth, the young baby Pan is erased prematurely once again, and this time right in front of her grandfather. And instantly, with this sight now in mind, freshly scorched into his eyes, something snaps finally within the now extremely brittle mental state of Vegito. And with his eyes suddenly closing as veins begin to flex on his face, the God Killer would just let out, "My head! Why is my head hurting? Why are you doing this?" Almost as if finally, Vegito was beginning to sense what was happening in the real world now too. And with an ungodly roar that could only be described as coming from a true demon, Vegito screams to the sky, powering up, instantly breaking everything that bound him. But most notably, atop his head, where he was complaining about from being in pain, two vicious and uncharacteristic horns suddenly burst forth from the sides of his temple. And with the horns now at full length and seemingly not even noticed by Vegito, once his eyes and expression came down back to normal, he begins saying,
"Enough of this! Everything will be paid for now!"
Immediately leading to Vegito once again screaming with a truly beastly roar, as the God Killer raises his head straight up and yells to the heavens as if demanding his escape. But soon enough, his entire body, as a result of his power-up, begins to completely become enveloped in a ball of shining energy that spits dark lightning all over until... Back on the outside, the barrage of stabs on Vegito seemingly finally begin to come to an end. As eventually, as the two gods raise their feet for one last time, all that can be heard is the breaths of their exhausted states. That is until... Wait a second. His energy, it's... Out of nowhere, Mule's face is totally lost in a flash of light that can only mean one thing. Some way, somehow, Vegito's explosion of energy from within his mind reaches outwards and causes an insane explosion that covers the landscape, darkening the sky as black thunder bursts forward everywhere. And when we look at the deities that watch on, luckily for them, both Iwan and Mule manage to survive, though thoroughly trying their best to cover and protect themselves as the wind and pressure from Vegito's power even blows off some of their clothing. While as expected, the unfazed, physically Madara seems to watch on with more curiosity than fear. And once the explosion of energy comes to an end, nothing can actually be seen or detected from within the thick clouds of smoke that remain until... something shoots out with terrifying speed straight out of the dust clouds, so fast there would have never been any way to deduce just who or what it was. That is until finally, a dark creature lands on the ground with a crash, not letting out any words, but just beastly grumbles as if the stranger was less human and more animal. Could this really be who we think it is? And when the figure is finally revealed, all we can see is a pitch black beast, horns visible and hair similar to Vegito, but any sense of the humanity seems to be well and truly gone. And up in the air, lifted in his left arm, is none other than the Blade of Destruction, indicating even in this primal state, this dark beast is still ready to kill. As the grumbling, mysterious beast begins letting out steaming smoke which bellows out of his gritted mouth, and just one word then can be finally heard. But though that word gave us our biggest clue towards this beast somehow being Vegito, once said, the black beast resorts back to grumbles, staring into the palm of his now clawed hand, marveling at his newfound power, or at least that would be how it seemed. is that? But now on the ground and more fearful than ever, Mule and Iwan would take notice from a distance. But as we zoom in on Mule, the true state of their fears come to light, as with a trembling voice, Mule would then let out, "What? That can't be the God Killer! Not in a million years! Why does he look like that now? Why does he look like... Oh, Lucifer!" As suddenly, a wave of paralyzing shock and terror explodes through the body of Mule, as sweat drips at speed all across his face at just the mere resemblance to the legendary being that seemingly all of the gods fear. "Iwan, this has gotten way too dangerous! We're getting out of here now!" And in a quick shock response, Mule would then grab onto the wrist of the stunned into silence Iwan by force and attempt a getaway. But this apparently is not unnoticed by the Dark Beast, who immediately then squints his eyes in the direction of the gods, before then turning around abruptly to face them, his eyes pinpointed at them in the distance, before... The seemingly now battle-conscious being then lifts his hand quickly into the sky, with his palm facing the duo of destroyers, with only one outcome left on its mind. And immediately with two clear victims in mind, the Dark Beast fires an even darker ball of ferocious energy straight towards the duo of gods. What's that? And though the ball deceptively looks small at first, by the time it reaches near enough the destroyers, the true size is apparent, almost able to dwarf their bodies, more than likely enough to erase them instantly. Can't you two fools even get running away, right? But fortunately for Mule and Iwan, out of nowhere to their rescue, the second arrives, sword in hand and ready to seemingly bear the brunt of the blast for them. But as the dark blast reaches within inches, Madara moves his blade back and yells with intensity, as if about to slice through the energy until... Your god-killing days will not be continuing while I'm around, Vegito! As immediately, with full confidence, the second slams his legendary blade down onto the blast, as if putting down an animal, with thunderous crackling of black lightning roaring all over as he strikes and attempts to push the energy ball back. But his strike doesn't seem to go exactly as he had first planned, as quickly Madara notices and comments, "What's this? It's not going back! Impossible! I'm actually trying here! Is my blade dulled?" But as Madara wonders, even more of the unthinkable happens as when we zoom in on the blade of Madara, soon the smallest of hairline fractures and cracks begin to show suddenly. And just like that, as if inevitable, the blade of the second snaps under pressure, cleanly in half as the ball of energy from the Dark Beast just continues to rush forward. Impossible! Eventually shooting past the shocked member of the five towards its target, while the stunned Madara can only stare forward and mutter, What just happened? He broke the Izanagi! But even the third could do that! But back with the destroyers, who are about to be annihilated themselves, Mule yells out, "No you don't!" And just like that, the two escape at the last second to fight another day. And Madara, noticing from a distance their departure, just thinks to himself, at least I was able to stall enough for those two to actually get out of my way. Before looking back down to the useless broken stub that is now his once legendary weapon, and lets out, "But this is just astonishing. I haven't seen a nickel scratch on this thing in millennia. And here it is now, a useless piece of trash!" Before then nonchalantly just dropping the damaged weapon onto the ground, as if having accepted the situation. Before continuing, though the more surprising thing here is that this beast even managed to break out of the eyes of Azuna. That should not be possible for any gods in this realm, let alone a damn mortal. This hasn't happened since him. As right behind Madara now appears a mysterious demon-like figure whose strange eyes that we seem to have seen mentioned a number of times so far. Before the second continues, but he broke through the illusion of sheer mental power alone. The years of horrible conditions in the demon realm made any nightmare I created totally powerless. Surely, this mortal couldn't have done the same? What even triggered this transformation? Did I go too far? But regardless, without too much actual fear or hesitation, Madara then descends immediately towards the ground, standing toe-to-toe with the horned beast, before then grabbing onto his mask once again and inquiring, "So, you seem to be a little stronger than before, aren't you, my dear Vegito? I dare say with those horns, you finally look more like your namesake, God Killer. Is this your true form?" But in response, of course, the near-mute Dark Warrior will just continue to let out ashy smoke from his mouth as he stares down Madara with internalized disdain. Madara now, without his sword though, will just get into a strange fighting stance of his own and respond back, "Not the talkative type anymore, eh? You seem to have so much more to say than for that little bad dream I put you through, didn't you, Vegito? Well, no matter. In that case, we'll save the small talk and get this over with instead. A beast like you must be put down anyway! As instantly, confirming the confidence of the second, Madara rushes in excitedly like a wild animal straight for the still sword-wielding creature in front. But just as he throws out his first punch, as if the Black Beast's Ultra Instinct was still intact, it instantly dodges straight out of the way. Until with a devilish laugh that does in fact remind us of Vegito, instantly, mid-attack, the wrist of Madara is grabbed. Let go, you! What? But before the sentence could even begin to be finished, as if ripping off a rose off its stem, the grinning dark creature would shockingly rip Madara's arm in half within nanoseconds. You vile mortal! Leaving the delirious with shock Madara to scream out in pain, but also pure disbelief in what the transformed God Killer had even just done to him, as blood pours and leaks instantly from his wound. And for the first time with a serious undertone of anger, grabbing onto his now pumping with pain shoulder, Madara would yell, "You truly are full of surprises! How very bizarre. Your speed has jumped at least tenfold to do something like that, not to mention your strength to make a god bleed like this. Seems that dark energy surrounding you now is a little bit more than just aesthetic." But with an increasingly large grin on the pitch-black warrior's face, he would begin giggling as he lifts the ripped forearm of the second before him like a prize trophy. Before crushing it, instantly like a mere scrunched-up piece of paper. And more notably, as soon as that was done, so too is the forearm instantly erased somehow, without even the mention of the word Akai. As if the Dark Beast had somehow now reached an all-new level of destruction power mastery while in this state. Think I'm supposed to care about that arm, mortal? You can do with it as you like. As in response, in a surprising turn of events, the second immediately rips off what's left of his arm, straight down to the shoulder, before dropping it with a thud right beside him. But though the bravado before made him seem unbothered, as the atmosphere around the second changes, the true anger within him becomes apparent, as he lets out, "Well done for maiming me, God Killer. For once you actually make guts seem reasonable for falling for the likes of you. But I'm afraid, if you think losing one arm would be enough to weaken me, you're in for a rude awakening." And suddenly, with a rising yell, Madara begins powering up his own energy. With that burst, no aura appearing except for a rumble on the very surface of the planet, and the air pressure and atmosphere changing dramatically, until... With a ferocious roar that resembles the one given off by the beast before him, his entire body becomes enveloped with a tremendously powerful aura that soon spirals into a cylinder that reaches the heavens themselves. And through it, Madara slowly rises from the bottom towards the top, all before the eyes of the dark beast below. But though almost point-blank faced with the humongous power-up, not so much as a flinch can be seen by the demon-like creature, as the wind blows his flowing white hair in all directions. But almost in a spectacle for the ages, the plume of vast energy soon begins to contort and change shape, until suddenly a pair of eyes become visible through what can only be described as a cloak of divine heat, continuing to change shape and form until... Suddenly, standing there complete, now making the dark beast appear as an ant before him, is a giant apparition, dressed in traditional samurai wear and with a sword of his own, as flares of energy begin to ripple off the titan. But as we zoom in on the giant apparition, hidden within its intimidating face is a crystal pentacle, with a familiar, blurred silhouette within. And soon, once peered in even closer, it is of course revealed to be Madara, having unleashed his energy to create this monster that encapsulates him. With his severed arm now giving off strange particles, Madara will then begin saying quaintly, "Ha ha 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 ha. You know, I've had that arm for millennia. But I suppose all good things must come to an end. A new beginning must eventually start." As suddenly, straight from the playbook of Piccolo, from within Madara's shoulder, an entirely new arm, formed from the same energy that seems to be making up the apparition, is formed in perfect muscular definition. And with his head now bowing in sinister fashion, pleased with himself, Madara would finally say, much better. I believe now, Vegito, you can finally see the difference between myself and Guts. Behold, the power of Madara, second of the 5 strongest in the multiverse! But as Madara makes this declaration of strength, suddenly, the demonic beast just begins to burst out into a cold laughter. As more smoke bellows out, his sharp inhuman teeth begin to bear out. And with the grin growing even larger by the second, the beast would inexplicably begin lifting up the blade of destruction, but not in a fashion that can be used for attacking. At least, not attacking Madara. As suddenly, in a completely unexpected shift, the dark being swipes the blade at himself. Laughing as the blade rushes in at him, now aimed at his face of all targets. The same blade that made cold cuts of Guts himself, now shooting towards the most vulnerable spot on the God Killer. What? What are you doing, fool? The turn of events even shocking Madara as he watches on, trying his hardest to figure out what the motive behind this is until... In incredible fashion, on impact with the Dark Beast's face, the near unbreakable blade of destruction that cut through even Kachin shatters into multiple pieces as if made of glass. But the shocking feats do not end there. Finally! As out of the shattered remains of the blade, suddenly, a dark mass of energy that can only resemble a mini devil shoots out with a thunderous scream. No! And though who or what it is remains a mystery to us viewers, to Madara, a sudden wave of fear rushes through his entire body. As he mutters, He let out the demon emperor within the sword! To the realm of mortals, you fool!
Come here.
What? But before Madara's fear and panic could reach its peak, just as the demon emperor has his first taste of freedom, instantly, it is grabbed by the throat and stopped straight in place, as the completely stunned emperor just stares into the eyes of its attacker with confusion until... In almost immediate fashion, the entire life force and being of the demon is absorbed straight into the left arm of the darkened God Killer, presumably through usage of the energy absorption device that should still be in his arm. What? And from within the shell of his giant apparition, even the Titan reacts in unison with Madara, moving back in fear and absolute confusion over what had just happened. And when we zoom in on Madara, with his hand raised to his face as if defending himself from the sight he had just witnessed, he mumbles, How did he get rid of a demon emperor so quickly? He just touched it and it vanished. Has his destruction power really risen to the level of affecting even demons? But as Madara wonders what comes next, suddenly the dark beast's body begins to change, lowering in mass while stretching out. The very skin of the creature begins to evaporate off in a smoky mist. All the while, an overjoyed smile can be seen all over his face. And as its entire body is soon lost in the dark smoke, as it eventually dissipates, the eye of a very iconic figure can then be seen. But along with that, an arm and chest now appearing, covered in a familiar fur, and below, a strange tail resembling a Saiyan's, but more demonic in nature. As unbelievably finally revealing himself is Ultra Vegito, but now looking markedly different in an entirely new form. Covered in sharp purple lightning, purple fur resembling a Super Saiyan 4 or 5, while his hair, now longer and sharper, bears still the purple of Ultra Ego and the white of Ultra Instinct. And adding to it all, of course, are the two protruding horns that can only tell us of Vegito's now demonic descent. And with one final grin, all is then confirmed as he lets out, "Sorry for swallowing up that demon emperor you were so fond of. How about instead, you say hello to a true devil now, Madara?" As finally, the multiverse witnesses the ungodly true power of the God Killer. So our story continues with Vegito in his new form, standing with his mysterious black horns blaring out of his forehead and the V mark on his chest glowing a violent purple, as black signature lightning coats his entire figure. While in front of him, a giant titan, created of course by Madara, the second of the 5 strongest, stands still, intimidatingly. Within the giant apparition though, Madara remains as cocky looking as ever, not bothered in the slightest, it seems, by Vegito's new appearance, as he grabs onto his mask eccentrically and lets out, Well, would you look at that? You changed yet again. And this time, not just your hair color changed. How curious. Though, I have to say you look far less intimidating than earlier, even with those embarrassingly small horns on your head. I don't believe that is supposed to be part of a Saiyan's anatomy, if I know my primates well. More like, in fact, what you see on a demon. Just all the more reason why you should no longer exist anymore, Vegito. And finally, in typical fashion, Vegito begins laughing in response, before saying back, "So, just because I grew some horns, I'm a demon that doesn't deserve to exist, huh? But you gods just are freely able to go around annihilating entire planets as and when you choose, looking down on anything that is weaker than you. Yet, you are the ones that should remain? Is that what you're saying?" You have to just love the truly stupid logic you elderly gods stick to. Silence, you damn child! But suddenly, from what was once a calm and concerted demeanor, pure fury and anger can be heard in the voice as he yells, pointing down at Vegito, "I've had enough of your insolence, you puny scum, and enough of your damn sob story. Boo-hoo! A few weak gods from this realm killed your friends and family, and now you have a vendetta against us all? Give me a break. We gods are what hold these universes together, and even the realms above, too. You wouldn't even exist without beings like us. This whole place would be overrun with the demon realm. You're lucky you absorbed that weak one, because if it was one of the true emperors that were released, the Grand Priest or Zeno themselves would no longer be able to watch you like some circus act." For soon, Madara's mannerism turns back to sinister as he continues, "In fact, this all only began because you killed a god, because you killed Beerus. Because of that one action, all of those innocent little earthlings had to die. Your sons, your wives, your friends, all gone forever. It seems in actuality, it was all because of you. Not anybody else. It was because of you, Vegito." But in response, a cold and hardened stare manifests on Vegito's face, as he no longer can listen to any more. He just simply spits out, "Watch your tongue." But this blunt response only serves to make Madara laugh once more, as he grabs his mask again and continues, "Watch my tongue? Or what, mortal? Have you forgotten already exactly who I am? You seem to have completely lost your marbles after what I just said. What's wrong? Did I say something that stung? Earthling killer?" But as soon as Madara says that final line, with complete silence, Vegito just then raises his black lightning-covered palm into the sky, before then closing his palm as if now sealing someone's fate. But curiously, nothing seems to happen. What was that supposed to be? You truly are a joke. If I'm such a joke, then start laughing. And suddenly, out of nowhere from the heavens themselves, or maybe even the demon realm, a massive strike of black thunder shoots down and hits directly on the giant titan containing Madara, shocking the apparition instantly as its entire insides and skeletal structure become visible for an instant. Instantly leading to the giant being crashing down onto one knee and onto its right fist. Immediately tilting Madara, who experiences the massive G-force of the fall too, as he then lets out angrily, "What the hell? Did this mortal just command down lightning from this god-forsaken planet? Who the hell does he think he is? Some kind of thunder god? Where did he go?" But suddenly, mid-sentence, as Madara turns on the Titan to see where Vegito is, he quickly notices the God Killer is nowhere to be seen anymore. Angering the impatient second as he yells out, "Damn it! That vile scrounger managed to distract me with that little magic trick. Now where the devil has he gone?" "The devil's right here, Madara." But suddenly, the voice of the God Killer is heard once more. Leading to Madara quickly turning around. Only for the smiling Vegito to now appear right behind him, and within the giant titan too, as Vegito nonchalantly lets out, "So this is what it's like inside this giant samurai." Thought it looked weird at first, but it's kind of cozy. "What? What are you doing in here?" Immediately leaving the panicked Madara to react in fear, now looking head-on at the newly transformed Vegito as he folds his arms without a care in the world, making Madara continue, "If you don't get out of my sight, right? Shut up!" Before suddenly, with the fastest and most brutal of kicks, Vegito slams his foot 300 Spartan style right into the chest of Madara, so hard it almost seems like his foot penetrated right through into the deity's body, sending Madara shooting out straight from the great samurai and right down to the ground as if falling from a skyscraper. And once we zoom in, the legendary second is seen as helpless as any of the mortals he used to look down on, as the force of Vegito's kick continues sending him down, acting like his own force of gravity. Until, with a violent crash, Madara smashes straight into a group of sharp rocks and boulders on the ground below, and unable to do a thing about it. Meanwhile though, now all alone, now within the Titan Madara created, in the middle of the center crystal, Vegito remains. And looking around at his surroundings, he soon comments with a curious smirk. Interesting. This seems to be a little different to the giant I can create via Ultra Instinct. Let's see how this thing works, huh? But back on the ground, where Madara remains buried in a smoking pile of rubble on the floor, a slight rumble can be heard until... With a crash, something bursts forth. Something or someone I'm sure we all know. As the hand of the second is then seen bursting out with a murmur until... Finally, the second of the 5 strongest emerges in full. Damaged, but still able to move, and full of anger. You! And with his hair in disarray, and his mask now cracked for the first time in millennia, he would continue. How dare you use my tools as your own? How dare you use the possessions of the deities, you damn mortal! A weakling like you has no place touching these things, and nor will you possess even an inkling of the power and grace needed to use them either. Stop fooling yourself and get out! Oh, really? But in response, Ultra Vegito, of course, just breaks out in laughter. His grin wide as he suddenly raises his arm out again as if to strike Madara with thunder again before saying, So I can't handle this level of power, you say, huh? Not enough grace. I guess that's because of these horns too, right? Well, let's just put that to the test then, shall we? As instantly, on command of Vegito, with even more speed and precision than before, the giant apparition pulls back its giant sword and angles its trajectory straight for Madara. What? No! Leaving the second momentarily stunned in place as he just observes his own most powerful weapon turn on him inexplicably due to the actions of a mortal. And with a thunderous roar and explosion of force, the giant then slams instantly the energy-powered blade straight down onto the second without mercy. All the while, Ultra Vegito watches from within. And amazingly, the force and power of such a divine tool, when we zoom out into space, slices the entire planet in half in the aftermath also. Causing a portion to instantly then separate and be lost to the void of space as it slowly moves away. Oops! And with such monstrous destruction done, a cheeky smile comes across Vegito's face as he covers his mouth to stop himself from laughing and then says, Looks like I went a little too far. Who knew I had such grace? Hey, Madara? No worries though. I don't seem to detect any other life forms on this desolate planet anyway. I guess that old codger Arak wanted to fight me all alone. Respectable for a god, I guess. But what about this one? Is he dead already or what? Not a chance, God Killer! But of course, from behind Vegito, the very same voice of the god he was talking about shouts out from behind. And practically unbothered though, Vegito would then just turn around slowly, with a smile inquiring, Oh, there you are, Mr. Second. Thought I lost you there for a moment. How are you doing? You look a little different. Get out! As shockingly, Madara does indeed appear behind Vegito, but not as we remember him. As now his entire fit appears totally damaged in all aspects, with his left leg and right arm now exposed, and crucially, now his mask broken and revealing one of his dangerous eyes. As with a cold look, he would let out, You will pay a far dearer price than whatever the priest had in mind now, boy. Do as you like with these lower gods, but make a fool of one of the 5, and you will pay for eternity, my friend. Immediately leading to Madara rushing in now point blank at a stood still Vegito with his right leg fully pulled back. Off with your head! Managing to land straight on what appears as the God Killer's face for devastating impact. That is of course until the true impact is seen, with the giggling Vegito's neck bent to the side, but an unbothered look showing us just how little the attack did as he quips, Off with my head? You're lucky to itch my ear with something like that. Have you gotten weaker or something? I don't remember you being so pathetic. What? How dare you! In a flash, triggering Madara, who remains pushing his leg harder and harder, hoping to budge Vegito even an inch. While the still smiling Vegito would just look him dead in the eyes and let out, Wait, that's not all you've got, is it? Come on, do something actually entertaining! Tch, what a disappointment you are, Madara. Guts will be rolling in his grave. Before instantly grabbing onto Madara's prone leg, before sweeping his grip back in a stance, ready to throw him like a shot put, as he says crassly, Perhaps it's time you join him there! Suddenly then throwing the legendary second of the 5 with vicious force straight down once again, as the helpless Madara can barely do a thing. Shooting down directly to the ground like a laser beam, within nanoseconds, shaking the very core of what's left of the planet. But once again, though there is an eerie silence under the rubble at first, it's not long before... Madara, in an intoxicated rage, would burst out even more damage than ever before, and now, with his entire face unmasked for the first time, his true emotional anger now being finally visible. As once his face calms back down, as he stands surrounded in electricity, through gritted teeth, he lets out, "You. This joke has gone on long enough. I don't remember the last time I ever even felt the cold air on my skin. Your death will be colder, God Killer. Whatever's going on here cannot be allowed. A mere mortal contending with me. This has to be some form of trick. The same you used to defeat Guts, no doubt. If only I still had my sword. This battle would already be over." And for a moment, with this statement uttered, there's a period of silence as Madara stands before the menacingly tall Titan. But from within, Vegito, now showing his same side, grows curious over Madara's claims, as he inquires, "Even after seeing the clear difference in our powers, you still underestimate me so much that you think it's just because you're missing your sword? Do you really believe the utter garbage you're spouting out, or are you trying to make me angry?" But Madara, now smiling cunningly back at Vegito, would then respond, "Oh, most definitely, my young friend. There isn't a shade of doubt in my mind. You'd be finished if I had my legendary blade back with me. I have mastered the art of swordsmanship over millions of years. There isn't a warrior alive who could best me when a katana is in my possession. You forget, those same sword skills you were so impressed by from Guts were all just the meager teachings I gave him while he studied under me. This isn't even a question. After all, you do remember what happened the last time you attacked me with my blade in hand, don't you, God Killer?" As behind Madara, a flashback is then seen to the moment the second instantly beheaded Vegito, the first time they ever clashed. And in final response, the God Killer would then curiously begin biting onto the glove of his left hand, slowly pulling on it until finally completely removing it and revealing his bare arm. Until suddenly, with his glove still in mouth, muffling his tones, Vegito would hold out his palm straight towards Madara with his energy absorption device on full show. This immediately alarming the second as he changes stance into one which is presumably defensive, as he yells back, "So, your response is just to blast me from all the way up there, huh? Cowardly move, mortal. But fine. Sword or not, I will still find a way to expose your weakness. You are nothing to me!" But as Madara rants on his assumptions, meanwhile, the shape of the giant energy apparition in the distance begins to distort, until beginning to suddenly fade away from the legs and arms first, and then finally, near completely, as it disappears into a swirl that seems to be centered all around Vegito. And of course, once we zoom in closer, we see the reasoning become obvious, as through his energy absorption device, Ultra Vegito takes in all of the energy that Madara had released to create the Titan. And eventually, nothing is then left, as everything vanishes in a puff of smoke. Delicious. With Vegito's own palm being red hot and smoking itself from just how quick and concentrated the energy absorption was, before then placing back on his glove with the lowest of urgency. Leaving Madara now open-mouthed, having seen this technique for the first time, as he comments, "This vile creature! So this is what you meant by tasting my energy. You can absorb it. Yet another thing you have stolen from me. Enjoy it while you can. But I warn you, that wasn't even a fraction of my true power." But nonchalantly, as Vegito with his folded arms descends to the ground with a muffled thud, he would just then say, "Oh, I know that. Would be a bit embarrassing if that was any real percentage of your energy, because I barely felt it. That might be because now your energy is meaningless to me, or maybe it's because you haven't got that little toothpick of yours to attack me with. And if that's what you think, who am I not to believe you?" Tell me, Madara, are you a righty or a lefty? Before, without any hesitation, Vegito suddenly lifts his arm to grab onto his right horn and then... With a raucous scream straight out of the pits of hell, Vegito's entire face becomes covered in veins, as he seemingly begins yelling as if putting all his energy and strength into one mystery action. Now what is this freak doing? Another transformation? Panicking Madara as he begins to step back from the sudden change in mannerism from Vegito. Come on! As soon, something very interesting begins to be seen as Vegito slowly pulls out his horn until... Once fully pulled out, with a splatter of blood, what is inexplicably revealed is an entire katana at the base of the horn, covered in black lightning as a disorientated Vegito just lets out... Well, that's going to hurt in the morning. What is he? Leaving Madara now even more gobsmacked at what this supposed mortal can do as he watches on wide-eyed, just muttering out incoherent sounds until... Yeah! I believe this will be a suitable replacement for what you had. It's imbued with half of my energy after all, so consider it evening the playing field. And just like that, Madara quickly grabs onto the handle as if second nature, peering at it from the side of his eye with curiosity, taking in its obvious power. And now as silent as a baby given its dummy, Madara would then hold up the blade and stare down, assessing its quality before saying, "Fine craftsmanship. The materials seem high quality too. This is the work of a mortal?" Before seemingly all his confidence returns, as he pulls back the sword and stares at the now one-horned Vegito, and then saying, "So, you say this blade contains half your power? Well, let us see if you're bluffing or not. Somehow, I don't think I should be trusting one as demonic as you. Let's see what this thing can do!" As instantly, in a strange sword stance, the second then swipes his new blade with full power, striking nothing. But once we see things from Vegito's perspective, even with just a swipe in the air, a huge current of sharp wind rushes straight for an unmoving Vegito. And with Vegito's hair blowing in all directions, and rubble crackling on his body as the airstream gets closer and closer to him, Vegito would say, "I told you so," before vanishing just in time. And then reappearing as just the stream of air from that one swipe leads to a massive mountain behind being sliced clean in half. As Vegito then asks with a smirk, "So, does it meet your requirements then? Will I finally be able to see this true power of yours, Mr. Second?" And Madara, now enthralled with his new weapon, would not even pay any mind to Vegito, as he would stare into the blade and with a smile say, "Oh yes, this will meet the job and then some. I do believe you've made a grave mistake here, Vegito. It seems once again you let your overconfidence create your downfall. And now I'm ready to put you down for eternity. Forget what that priest wants, I can deal with him later. I'm erasing you from existence here and now." As immediately, with his body contorted into his signature sword stance, the maskless Madara displays a quietly confident smirk, knowing full well in his mind how this battle will now go. Now that's the spirit! But as Madara's confidence grows, Vegito's enthusiasm does too. As with his arms folded once again, almost looking down at the second, he would simply just say, "Come then, I haven't got all day." With not a moment in vain, Madara would then blast off at Vegito with fury in his eyes, and his now demonic sword in hand. While Vegito himself would just begin angling his body forward with a cocky smirk, readying himself for battle, even with his arms still folded. But just as Madara slashes his blade, Vegito, even with half energy, dodges perfectly, still not letting go of his hands, as he smirks and comments, "Oops, just missed me there, friend. Why don't you try again? Maybe you've grown a little rusty in the few minutes you've been without a blade. Right, Sword Master?" Shut up! Shut up! Triggering Madara mid-attack, he soon begins to doubt himself, thinking, what happened there? The strike was pin perfect. Timing, movement, speed, it couldn't get any better. Was that just a fluke? It has to be! Just die! As now enraged and losing himself from within, Madara would swing aimlessly and with acute ferocity in every direction, while Vegito, still with his arms folded, would dodge everything like playing with a mere child. To think, you may have actually put an end to me if you hadn't showed me that nightmare. What a horrific thing to do. And you think you gods are righteous, forcing me to see my loved ones die over and over, while I could do nothing but stand and watch. That wasn't nice, Madara. That wasn't nice at all! Before, with a slight hint of anger in his tone, Vegito would launch his legs straight through Madara's torso once again, leaving the second to spit out blood and almost pop his eyeballs straight out of his head. But this time, Madara isn't sent for a crash landing, but instead skids back on the soles of his feet, grabbing onto his chest in pain, before in an exhausted state letting out, This can't be happening to me. This is like fighting a real S-tier demon. Something isn't adding up here. But as Vegito watches on with an air of patronization, he would cockily comment, "Oh, my dear Madara, when will you let go of this ego that you have from being a so-called god? and just accept this absolute gulf between our power levels. Our difference in strength was never anything to do with your weapon, but everything to do with your pathetic existence. Those who talk down to the gods will meet their fate one day, and if I can't be the one to do it with my abilities, then I shall destroy you along with this planet! Immediately then launching his blade downwards, straight into the planet's surface, knowing with the blade's power, the whole planet would blow instantly. But just as the blade reaches mere centimeters away from impact... What? Standing there unbelievably, as if having teleported, the God Killer uses his own foot as a shield against the planet, not grimacing in the slightest, despite the confirmed sharpness and power of the blade. And as Vegito looks into the fear-stricken face of Madara, looking down on him, he unfolds his arms and says with a concerted smile, "Tut tut, what a brainless resort from you. But I guess it's to be expected of such reckless gods, so desperate to not be one-upped by the mortals they spit on. Unfortunately for you, one of you silly deities already tried to pull that dirty trick on me once, and I won't be falling for it again. Don't you dare compare me to those low-life destroyers! The now crazed Madara fruitlessly try once again to slaughter Vegito, not remembering seconds ago how impossible the task will be. Enough, little piggy! But before Madara can embarrass himself any further, Ultra Vegito sheds a tear of mercy and punches him in the solar plexus, immediately knocking the wind straight from within him. And left coughing in pain and agony now on his knees, he can only mutter one word. How? But as Vegito walks closer and Madara tries to use his katana to keep himself upright, Madara will then finally let out, "Wait, before you take my energy, mortal, just as you did my students, allow me one request. I have one last gift for you before I go. A gift I wanted to give Guts. But you as the one who bested both he and I, is more deserving of it." And Vegito, looking down proudly like a god himself, would then respond, "Of course. Unlike you gods, I know the meaning of mercy. Say your final words and feel free to give me this gift. I'm sure I shall treasure it always." And just as Vegito says this, Madara takes his chance and immediately grabs onto the arms of the unmoving Vegito. And for a second, there is an air of curiosity as Vegito remains still, just watching as Madara tries his best. But as the second looks up and continues, "Sorry for the abrupt grab. I just need to look you in the eyes as I give you this." To which a cold and unbothered Vegito will just respond, "Go on then, I'm waiting." Demon Flames! As suddenly, as Madara shouts out this call, his eyes change once again and leak blood, as Vegito is instantly caught on fire with what seems an intense black fire, soon engulfing his entire face in nanoseconds before ending the God Killer's life as his whole face is burned away instantaneously, left with nothing but a singed skull still burning in what seems like unending flames. I knew it! I knew I could do it! Call yourself a demon, then you will burn like one. These flames will burn for as long as I live. Sealed straight from the demon realm. You grew cocky, God Killer, and that is why... But soon, the immense pure serotonin the second was experiencing is cut short, as a horrific sight then stares him back in the face. What? I thought you were going to give me a gift, friend. Hurry up. I feel like it's getting a little hot. Leaving Madara with nothing to say but whimpers and cowering breaths, looking at what could only be described as his worst nightmare. And soon, Vegeta would then just grab onto the skull of Madara, bleeding and crying from his eyes with both hands, and say lovingly, "Oh, you poor little thing! You look like you've seen a ghost. How about I just put you to sleep now so you can forget all about it?" And just like that, within seconds, Madara would fall to his knees, and then eventually face first onto the ground, now deceased, with all his energy given to God. And with that done, from the still burning skull of Vegito, pink goo would begin to form around his chin. As he slowly then begins laughing, the goo would then formulate around his skull. Until soon forming the perfect shape of his face, and then...
Unstoppable!
As with the flames now all gone and covered in black lightning, Ultra Vegito would stand good as new once again without a scratch on him. Now truly immortal with the power of Boo.
Hell is is for lovers who love one another. A is for ass, of which I like to eat. U is for you're the only one for me.